Moth at the Window by E.B. Hunter. My phone buzzed. Another message from the ex-lover boy at the library. I pushed the volume button, not bothering to flip open and read the message. I knew what it would say. Tiff, you're the one. I need you to come back to me. There's only so many ways I could say, and I need another hole in my head. The air was chilly. I cursed my grandparents for not having proper heating. Only an old wood furnace in the basement. I shuffled downstairs to the main floor, my faithful terrier Larry at my ankle as always. I let him out the back to do his thing, opening the old door with a creak. There's a fog rolling into town with the cool evening air. Nothing's visible past my fence line but the flickering amber street lamp that's trying to turn on. Most people hate the fog, but I kind of loved it. It's so mysterious and kind of creepy. Maybe that's why I fell for my new guy, Mitch, a love of the mysterious. I don't know what it was about him, but he made my knees weak, literally. When he kissed me, he had to help prop me up so I wouldn't fall to the floor. Seeing him made my heart beat faster and my stomach drop. Things had been on the fritz with Tony for a while, and meeting Mitch, well, it must have been a sign. I broke it off with Tony the next day, or it might have even been the next week. Either way, we've been through for a couple of weeks now, and I'm with Mitch. Larry came bounding to me through the fog, racing inside like he'd seen a ghost. I shut the door and headed into the basement. The fire had burned down to embers, but some kindling fired it up. Another log would last until my date with Mitch later. I had to hurry up if I wanted to be ready for him. My sister was expecting me to have a box of Gran's wedding photos for her. She was coming by, and I wanted her long gone before Mitch came over, but I still hadn't found them up in the attic. My grandparents died last year in a horrible car accident. I'd been going through the piles of old stuff, mostly junk, in the attic, and donating it or rehoming it with family. They left the house to me, but the only reason I got the place was because I'm a fuck-up. My other sisters were married and had kids, but not the loser Tiff. She can't keep a man, can't keep a job, can't keep the fridge stocked. Basically, as far as my grandparents were ever concerned, I just couldn't keep up. I grabbed the rope and pulled the door down from the ceiling with a creak. A fresh powdering of dust rained down, along with cobwebs and God knows what else. I looked up the ladder at the opening to the attic. The black hole stared back. It looked like it could hide any number of spiders, ghosts, or long-lost grandkids my family never told me about. I shivered. It's stupid to look into something like an attic and feel like death is staring back at you. Stupid or not, I hoisted Larry up there first to give a good sniff around before crawling up after him. I nearly fell scrambling for the string to turn the light on. The bulb swung on its wire, throwing shadows in crazy directions. The dancing light did little to stop the pounding in my heart or the power of my imagination. Larry looked up at me, eyebrows crinkled and head cocked. I imagined him thinking, "She's doing that thing again." I took a deep breath. "Yeah, I know. It's just an attic. Nothing scary up here." The shadows stilled, and I turned on the next light. The warm orange glow made it less ominous, and I bent down to give my good boy a scratch. "Thanks for checking it out, Larry. I can always count on you." I looked at my watch. My sister would be there soon, and there were boxes up to the rafters. "Needle in a haystack," I said to Larry and shook my head. "Music?" He sneezed, and I took that as a yes. Moving to the old record player and flipping the switch, a little red light blinked on, and I slid a record out of its sleeve, laying it down on the velvet pad. I pushed a button and the arm swung, clicking into place as the record started its rotations. The needle fell into the track, and the cobwebs no longer mattered as the first chords rang out. My task felt a bit more possible after that. Mon Dieu blared through the grainy old speakers, and I moved the boxes around, throwing even more dust in the air. I hope there's no crazy killer spores up here, I'd thought. Larry sneezed his agreement, reading my mind like always. The last notes of Mon Dieu died, and the fuzzy record crinkled before the opening blared for La Vie en Rose. The French trilled and touched my soul, like some distant ancestor reaching out to me through time and space. I pulled a box down, and lo and behold, the grand prize. I set the box down, and the needle jumped, setting Edith into a fit of La vie, la vie, la vie. I stood to fix the record and hit the light with my head, not paying attention to where I was going. The bulb smashed, and I shrieked as the electricity popped. Larry whimpered, and I pulled the switch before electrocuting myself on the exposed filaments. Edith kept jumping as I pulled glass out of my hair and went to shut her up. A broken record is the worst noise in the world, other than maybe nails on a chalkboard. My hands shook as I pulled the needle off and hoped the record was repairable. It was my favorite, and always made me remember the good times when me and Grandpapa would slow dance in the kitchen, his smoky smell heavy in my nose, and his stubble scratching my cheek. The attic was heavy with silence and memories. Larry sat next to me, looking up with his big eyes and drooping ears. I picked him up and said, "It's okay, little man. Mommy was just a bit startled." I looked at the floor and all the glass littering it and gave him a kiss on the head. Thankfully, he didn't step on a piece. In the silence, and with my face pressed on Larry's soft little head, a thump sounded behind me. If I hadn't had Larry with me, I might have screamed out, but he kept me grounded until I heard it again. Thump, thump, thump. A stack of boxes sat between me and the noise, and I had visions of Michael Myers crouched with his kitchen knife. "You're being stupid," I told myself, and crept toward the boxes. Thump, thump, thump. I felt Larry shiver, and he let out a squeaky growl. I stopped in my tracks, the hairs on my neck standing up. "It's nothing, Larry. It's okay," I said, and picked up an old lamp with my free hand. I jumped around the edge of the boxes and screamed, hoping my battle cry would scare whatever lurked. There was no one there but the dust bunnies. Another thump, and I saw what was making the noise. A moth the size of a small jumbo jet was throwing itself at the small window in a vain attempt at escape. "Not quite Papillon, are you, little fella?" I said, and laughed at my joke. I put the lamp down, my hands shaking as I opened the window. The moth fluttered off into the night, moving like a drunk toward the amber light of the street lamp outside. The fog was as dense as ever, but there was a stooped figure under the light. Shadows hid their face, their head tilted upwards, looking at me. Even in the dark, I felt a shiver of recognition. "Gran?" I whispered, as a second figure joined her. Glass crunched behind me, and it felt like my heart stopped and time ceased. The empty light socket swayed, and I called out, "Hello?" Larry started to shiver again. I held my breath and looked around the attic without blinking when the sound came from behind me. Thump, thump, thump. I didn't want to look away from the half-dark attic, but the sound took me by surprise. I twisted around to see the moth back at the window. It thumped the pane of glass from the outside, then flew toward the light where the stooped figure stood with the other. "Is that you, Gran?" Between the fog and the dark, it was impossible to tell. Whoever it was time to get out of that spooky-ass attic and investigate. I picked up the lamp. "If there's anyone there, I'm leaving, and I've got a weapon. I crept to the ladder, glass crunching under slippered feet. My head spun around like an automatic sprinkler. I threw the lamp down, scrambling down as fast as I could, and almost dropping poor Larry in the process. I slammed the trap door shut, snatched my phone from the charger, and ran to the door. I turned around when the cold night air hit my face, but there was no pursuer. I stood there, breathing heavy, when the sound came from above me. Thump, thump, thump. I looked up and saw the moth smashing itself against the window. I had no idea why it wanted back in so badly. The thought of throwing a match and committing insurance fraud crossed my mind. The dark figure stood under the lamp, alone now, and despite the shadows, I felt them staring at me, like they knew me. The phone's light was near blinding as I flipped it open and dialed 911. The speaker blared as the pre-recorded voice told me the number was unavailable, as I got close enough to see the figure.
"You don't need to do that anymore,"
she said, and my breath caught. "Gran?" I said, and dropped the phone to my side. "But you're dead."
"Quite right, child."
She nodded in that matter-of-fact way she always did.
"Dead as a doornail."
The damp, foggy air stuck to me, and a chill seeped down into my marrow. "Then how are you here?"
"I came to get you."
She pointed to the house, and I looked back, following her twisted arthritic finger. Everything seemed like it always had. Dark green shutters and a picket fence. Bone-white siding that was due for a paint job in a couple years. But up in the attic, through that little window, an orange light shone into the night. The moth was thumping against the glass, and behind it was a silhouette. I couldn't make out the face with the backlighting. "Jesus fucking Christ! There's someone up there!" I shouted, and pointed at the window.
"Yes, dear. There are two somebodies."
"Two? How do you know that?" "Wait," I said, looking at my pointing hand and feeling my phone in the other. "Where's Larry?" I spun around, but he wasn't anywhere nearby.
"Don't worry,"
Gran said.
"He's up there, hiding and safe. Neighbors will find him in the morning. And you."
"Me?" She nodded and pointed up at the window. The face came closer, hair in a bun on their head, caramel complexion with drop-dead gorgeous brown eyes and full lips. "Son of a bitch!" I put a hand to my mouth. "That's me!"
"You don't have to watch what happens next. It's not pleasant,"
she said, and my eyes became glued to that tiny square at the top of the house. My attic self straightened, and a shadow cut across the light. I wanted to scream, to tell myself to look out, but it was too late. A hand drew across my throat, cutting a glistening crimson smile on my attic self's skin. I put a hand to my throat as a pale face slid around my attic self's shoulder, chomping down on me and dragging me from view. My fingers came away wet, and I looked away from the window in the attic to see a trail of blood leading to where I stood. "What was that?" I whispered, as a tear slid down my cheek, icy cold on my skin.
"Don't matter much,"
Gran said.
"It's time to go now."
I looked at her and saw the side of her face that was in the shadows. Her skull was sunken, and an eye was missing with bits of raw flesh hanging from her cheekbone. "Gran, your face!" She shrugged.
"Don't worry, dear. I can't feel it, just like you can't feel that."
She pointed at my neck.
"We live in the afterlife how we died in this one, until we're through the black, that is."
She turned and shuffled closer to the street lamp, placing her hand on the steel pole.
"Come now. It's past time we went,"
she said, holding out her other hand to me. I walked toward her, my mind numb and my feet reluctant. I looked at my phone one last time and saw a message from Mitch. "Can I come in?" And my reply, "Yes." Hey guys and ladies, thanks for watching. How is everybody doing? Links to all my shit are down in the description. I've missed you guys, and I'm excited to hear from you. Be good to animals, even people. See ya.